Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hey Jace, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Welcome to Uncovered. Guys, we're going to talk about overwhelm today. Mm-hmm. This is one of my favourite emotions. I've done it many, many times, and I'm sure everyone who's listening has done it as well, and you have as well.
Oh, totally. All the time.
Yeah. So overwhelm, basically, I love this emotion depending on how you look at it. Right, I absolutely hate this emotion when I'm in it, though.
Absolutely, and that would be like the first thing to see as well. Like, how do you feel, and how does the world like usually look at overwhelm?
Well, overwhelm's like a disaster zone. It's like what people do when everything is way too much and they can't cope. So it's basically when the bubble is about to burst. Mm-hmm. And overwhelm, if it continues for a really, really long time, it can turn into disease. So it is something that we need to be really mindful of, knowing how to work with. Overwhelm for a really long period of time is going to you're going to end up exhausted. Mm-hmm. Have you had that experience, Philia, where you've ended up overwhelmed and you've been overwhelmed for far too long and you've been tired?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I used to put way too much effort and like was super perfectionistic with my uni work, and then at the end of the semester I was just completely burned out. No matter how much I slept, I just was tired all the time. So had to change something with that.
So tell me why it was that was going on. What was happening for you?
Oh, I just wanted it all to be perfect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So this is the linker, guys, is that when you're running overwhelm, typically you want things to be perfect, or you're looking for things to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. So you're emotionally needing things to be a way that's going to make you feel satisfied in some way. So it's a little bit controlling, mm-hmm. right? It's defined, right? So our thoughts and the way that we think we need to be, and how things need to be, is actually what creates overwhelm in the first place. So as an example, I would love it if the academy everyone was just joining and everyone wanted to be part of it. Right? It's new, mm-hmm. right? So we're going through the teething stages at the moment, and so it can create a bunch of overwhelm. Now, before you came along and started working for us, Philia, I was doing so much, and now you're doing a full-time job while I'm working and doing a lot of work, and you're seeing me that, and I was doing all the things that I've asked you to do.
Yeah. So that's a bit crazy. Hey, you were basically working for like 2 to 3 people, really.
Yeah. 2 to 3 people's worth of work, and everyone was seeing me as this calm, collected human being. Mm-hmm. Now, I was so used to being in overwhelm as a utilizer. Right, so anyone who has overwhelm in some way like I do, I've utilized overwhelm as a massive chunk to get things done, mm-hmm. because I know I've got a big job ahead. So if you look at your jobs and you want something bigger than you think you can chew, overwhelm is the glory that will get you there, because it owns a whole lot of energy, mm-hmm. right? So imagine the amount of energy. It's a hurricane, overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right. It's a combination of a few emotions: fear, joy, anger, and peace. Right. So it has a whole lot of emotions, and your particular emotion that you might be struggling with at the time. So it's like a mix master. It doesn't mm-hmm. have its own definition. So it's a collector. It's like a bucket collector. Right. And this is why people who are in overwhelm we need something. So usually people go to chocolate, they'll go to food, they'll go to any form, maybe cigarettes, they'll go to alcohol to cover over that and numb themselves a little bit, right? Just to take the edge off. So people who have to have that beer at the end of the day, there's overwhelm sitting there. So they're just wanting to just take the edge off their day. So I believe overwhelm is a really important emotion to make sure that you utilize really, really well. Now, you never saw me in overwhelm, did you?
No.
Right? And you saw the list of what we did today.
Oh yeah, it was a long, long list.
It's an overwhelming list.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is, I look at that list and go, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by the tasks ahead. So we have some really good structures in place. So overwhelm basically means that you've got lots and lots of things up in your head that you're not delegating to others, you're not delegating to yourself well, and you've got a whole lot of chaos going on one level, or you're just a perfectionist, you want everything done yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? So the idea that I want to hand to you, and there's a guy, his name's Rob Cosberg. He's the person who helped me create my first book. And I'll never forget this statement. He said, get it done, don't get it done right. The moment he said this to me, my overwhelm dropped. Because he gave me permission to know that my book is going to get out there, which is out there. It's called From Broken to Breakthrough. And I got my book out. It took me 5 years because every time I went into the book processing thing, I was scared of anyone reading it. So it took me 5 years to get it out. Every single time I was in way too much overwhelm. So I was thinking, people are going to have a go at me, all this stuff. And then I had to rationalize it. I'm just typing and writing and editing right now. I had to re-rationalize what was really going on. Right? Because that fear of exposure was so strong in me, so I'd get overwhelmed to stop me and make excuses. And I had to actually get over myself and pull my head in, basically. And now I've got this beautiful book out, and this is this content for another book. And I really wanted to make sure that I do this differently this time. So this book's going to come out quickly rather than 5 years. Right? And it's because I'd never done something like this before, and I'm not the sort of person who likes to have the stage. I like to share stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like it to be about me.
Absolutely not.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the scary part is what it was doing. I was thinking, it's gonna pinpoint a direction towards me. I'm going to be sharing some stuff which is very, very different. People are going to have a go at me. All of these things were coming up, and I would stop myself in my tracks. Has anybody done that? Have you done that? Stopped yourself because of the ramifications and the retribution that you're not even going to receive. This is all in my head, right? And then I realized, people aren't going to like it.
Yeah, some people won't, some people will.
People will be absolutely mortified by it on some level, and other people will be like, I love this work. I love what you're sharing. So I knew that my overwhelm was actually a problem based on the psychology that was sitting inside of me of my patterns. So typically each and every one of us has a unique identity towards overwhelm, and we'll do it differently, all of us. So how you do overwhelm will be different to me. You might be that person who is overwhelmed because you're not in front of the stage. You're desperately needing to be in front of people, whereas that's my overwhelm. So it really depends on your type of nature and the way that you are and how you build your life. So once you actually find out what overwhelm is for you, then you've got to learn to surrender to it and start chipping away and making steps to make changes.
So is that what you'd recommend for people with overwhelm, to make steps to where they want to go?
Yeah, just chunk it down a little bit. So make it into bite-sized pieces so it doesn't become too much. Right? And once you do that, then you've got everything working. So for someone like me, I'm a extremely chaotic person in my nature, which basically means highly creative in lots of ways. Now, you're a highly creative person in a different way.
In a structured way.
In a structured way. So you and I work really, really well together. So you've got to actually make sure that you spend time with people who can help you level out your overwhelm. Don't do it on your own. It's definitely not doing it on your own sort of thing. This is where overwhelm's designed to help with collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
It's never ever an alone thing. So you need other people to support you. So the worst thing that we can do when we have overwhelm is to isolate.
Isolate and have some chocolate.
Yeah, and which is the thing, right? So what we do is we communicate what we're overwhelmed with so we can share our absolute desire to become the best versions of ourselves possible. Think about it. Overwhelm, if it's looked upon that way and our best self is wanting to be shared, then overwhelm will get us there, because it's going to take us on a journey to take those things that we're meant to do in life and build them and make them happen. And the bigger thing that the bigger empire you want to create, the more overwhelm you might have. So if you've got a big thing you want to do, then you'll have more overwhelm. And then if you've got a little thing that you want to do, or you're agoraphobic and you're worried about what everyone thinks, that will be there too. So you've got to know, well, what level of overwhelm is there for you to partake in rather than remove. Because again, it's another label that will get judged, and it will be medicated. So the question you want to ask yourself is, do you want to be medicated for the rest of your life around your emotions, or do you want to engage and use them in a willful way?
I guess number 2 sounds much more tempting, hey?
Well, it's more tempting. It comes at a cost though, Philia. You have to actually make sure that you're willing to spend time with the emotions that you're actually uncomfortable with. Right? And this is where we quite often need help, because if we're uncomfortable with something, our own choices are not going to be able to get us to the next level.
No, that's true.
Right? So when you joined our academy, not just to be in the academy, to also work for us, it was a sense of going, okay, well, there were some things that you needed to work on that were creating overwhelm, and every time you and I chatted, it would go away instantly, right? Even talking to me, you were overwhelmed, wondering if I was going to pick on you or have a go at you.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, you're just like, oh, I feel so much better after talking to Jason.
Yeah. Always a feeling of relief.
Yeah. So that is the key to it, is getting stuff off your chest, right? And sharing what you're hiding from the world, and letting at least one person in on the game.
And I think your role in this is really important as well, because you're never like, oh, you shouldn't feel overwhelmed. You're like, that's okay. Like,
yeah,
you feel that way. That's the way it is. And, now I'm going to help you to handle this a bit better.
Yeah, and work with the overwhelmed the way that you need to. It's a medicine and a drug for liberation, right? All the haphazard emotions are basically your soul telling you it's time for you to work with the things that you don't think you can. And once you start working and chipping away at the things that you need to work on to become a better person, overwhelm ceases to exist. It just goes away, and you end up this feeling. And the feeling that we're all looking for is relief. We have to meet overwhelm to find relief, though. We can't just have relief.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Everyone's desperate for relief. Go to overwhelm to find it. Find the answers through it, and let it express itself rather than hide from it. One of the biggest fears that people have is public speaking. People get overwhelmed in groups. People get overwhelmed when they're with their peers and they have to talk in front of a class, in front of anything. Now, I've been talking since every week since 2012. A lot of talking. And I'm so used to doing it, I don't get overwhelmed anymore. Right? So overwhelm comes in different areas for me now.
Because you practiced so much, so it's like kind of natural now for you. Whereas in the beginning it was very overwhelming.
Yeah. So now when overwhelm's there, I go and try and chase things that are overwhelming to get myself moving. And there are times in the morning, and I've had this experience, like I ask my our astrologer what is going on for us a lot of the time. And January 1st came, and I said, I'm getting anxious in the morning again. And I told our astrology teacher, and she said, yeah, that's you're going to have that for a while. So I wake up every morning in this feeling of overwhelm. And then I breathe, have a think about all the things that are going to fall apart in the overwhelm, because it's like everything's going to fall apart like a thunderstorm or an earthquake. And I look at all those things that are going to fall apart, and then I figure out, well, what am I going to do to achieve the results I want to achieve in my life through that overwhelm? Because you know how your head just goes 100 miles an hour with overwhelm? It says, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this is going to happen. And then you create this anxiety through it. Like our body gets really, really pumped up, and our adrenaline's running like a hurricane. Or we look at it and go, okay, here are the things that I need to achieve, that I want to achieve in life. It feels like a need to achieve when it's overwhelmed, though. And then we turn it into a want. It becomes aspirational, and it becomes liberational, and then it becomes relieving each time we get towards our goals that we want to face in life.
That's really beautiful. And you said before that if you don't address the overwhelm, if you don't learn to utilize it, it manifests as disease as well. Yeah. So is there any particular types of disease that you've seen commonly in people with lots of overwhelms? Or
look, it's quite often chronic fatigue, overtired, so a lot of kidney issues, so people who have kidney problems. Depending on what you choose to do, you could end up having adrenal fatigue. So all the ones where people are burning exhaustion. So if you don't tend to it, it's going to tend to you. It's going to force itself on you. So I know a lot of people who have had that exhaustion and they feel overwhelmed. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed about, how am I going to get out of this when you feel exhausted? And it's about rebuilding if you get to that place where it's gotten too much and it has consumed you. So disease actually appears because we're out of balance with our emotions, in my opinion. This is what I've experienced with working with people for such a long period of time. It's the emotions and the psychology that's around those emotions that actually creates disease in the first place. So they've found now that there are memories in cells. So that's amazing. Science knows this, that cells have memory. So when I first learnt my first ever healing thing was about trauma within the body. And I put my hands on, and then there'd be a memory that would come up from a person from the trauma. And I experienced that myself. And so I know that trauma can be overwhelming, and our job is to unpack the problem and make it different.
That's beautiful. Well, I guess that gives us a very different spin on overwhelm, and not to medicate it, but to embrace it and utilize it, really.
Yeah, utilize it as a resource, because look, if you think about it, it's an extreme level, and it's an extreme emotion. So imagine if we could use that emotion and have it as our fuel. If it's fueling and supportive, then we're going to end up having a life that we can pump life into. Otherwise, life is going to be punched into us. And that's what it can feel like. The number of people who have come to see me with absolutely burnt out exhaustion, and then I just show them how to work with overwhelm, anxiety, and try and find, well, what is it that's making them do this in the first place. It's always individual. And once we find that individual overwhelm, our job is to slowly pull it apart, surrender to whatever we're frightened of, and journey towards freedom with it. And then it'll be our fuel rather than us having no petrol in the tank.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's all my questions that I have for today. Is there anything else that you want everyone to know about Overwhelm?
Well, all I want you guys to think about is every emotion that I'm sharing, think about it differently, give it a different spin, ask why it is there, why is overwhelm there for you, look at your personal life, write it down, figure out what you want, and let overwhelm take you on the journey to get there. And make sure you're breathing properly. Overwhelm can be stopped in 3 breaths. It's very, very simple. Get out of your head, into your heart, and figure out what your purpose is. And if you've got a big purpose, use the overwhelm to get you there.
Cool.
All right, so look, if you like this information and you know someone who's in overwhelm at the moment, get them to have a listen to this and get them to have a feel of what this is. See if it makes sense. If you're in that space, you really like this emotional content, I'd love it if you could review it and comment and share it with your friends, because this is the only way that we can get bigger, by you guys helping us out. If you like it. If you don't like it, obviously don't do it. Thanks so much for listening today, and look forward to hearing us again and having a journey around emotions. All right. Thanks.
Until next time.